Welcome to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. I'm your host, renowned sex and relationship coach Amanda Testa. And if you are looking to reclaim your sexual desire, take sex from a to-do to something you look forward to, and enjoy deeply connected relationships without adding more to your already full plate, then you are in the right place. Listen in to discover how to fan the flames of your feminine fire, fall in love with your sensual self again, and experience intimacy like never before, all in a way that feels really good to your system. Make yourself comfortable and enjoy the episode. Are you ready to move from feeling exhausted to feeling ecstasy in every cell of your body? I know this can sound sometimes hard to believe, or, oh yeah, that's easy for everyone else, but not for me. But let me tell you, this is not only possible, there's a proven kind of blueprint to follow that can help you move from feeling overwhelmed, feeling exhausted, feeling depleted, to feeling energized in your skin, to enjoying the pleasure at your fingertips. And today I am going to tell you how to do it. So sit back and relax and enjoy the episode. Thanks again for being here. I am your host, Amanda Testa, and today I'm diving into moving from exhaustion to ecstasy. And I know many of you that have been listening to the podcast have heard my story, really of my journey of being a new mother, feeling totally depleted, feeling like I was giving of myself to the point of martyrdom, and how in our culture that is really prided, right? We are taught as women identifying people to give, to serve, to take care of everyone else's needs. And growing up in the South, that was a really big lesson that I learned about just being pretty and being quiet and behaving myself and all the things, which, let's face it, that was not always so easy for me. It was like trying to squish myself into like a square peg if I was a round peg, whatever they say there. But it's so true, is that feeling of suppression, feeling of dimming. And this is endemic in our culture because time and time again, I talk to women or I listen to them tell their stories about at some point when they were little, there was someone or something that happened, or maybe it was even subconscious, but they got the message to dim their light, to not shine too bright, to be meek, to not boast, to sit back and let others take the spotlight, or to hide part of who they were. Because when we come into this world, we are a bright being, right? We are this divine creation. And I love in a lot of the work that I do is rooted in the rebloom archetypes from Rachel Maddox. I love this work, and I'm one of her certified rebloom coaches. As our soul seed is kind of how we come into form, right? And so this potential lies within us. And it's really easy to get disconnected from that as we move throughout our busy lives. And so I just want to say all this to name that it's so common. And it's endemic that women identifying humans, the more marginalized your identity is, the more you suffer from this, of carrying the weight of others, of trying to give and give of yourself until there's nothing left. And let's face it, we also live in a very extractive culture that is all about what can I give? How can I perform better? How can I hustle? How can I hack my way to the top? How can I burn both ends of the candle so I can get to the next level? How can I work harder? How can I be more? How can I give more of myself? How can I show up in a bigger way? How can I 10x my business or 10x my everything, right? Everything needs to be 10x. Can I 10x my being? All of these things, which, yes, we want to live to the fullest expression of ourselves, but not at the extent of depleting ourselves. And especially if you're listening and you're a mother or a caregiver or a parent, and you have a lot of responsibility, not only to care for your own needs, but to care for others' needs. And let's face it, that can be a very exhausting task. It can be very emotionally draining, physically draining. And so you can be running on fumes. And I know I spent many years of my life running on fumes before I really started to do this work and learn that there's a different way. We can actually live our lives from a place of fulfillment. And that's not to say that we're not going to run into those roads of overwhelm and exhaustion again in our lives. But the good news is once you learn the blueprint, once you learn the tools, then you can implement them time and time again to find your way back, to what lights you up, to what feels good. And I want to share a little bit about how to do that today. But before I do, I want to share a little story. And many of you know my story of when I first started came to this work. But something that I haven't shared is as much as this past year, I turned 50 this summer, which was a huge milestone, right? This is a big birthday. And as I was celebrating, I had the intention to make this 50th year really, really fun. I want to do 50 things I've never done before that are fun and enlivening. And I wanted to celebrate my birthday numerous times. And so 50 just kicked off with a bang. It was such a blast. Then, come around a few months later, around September, I noticed myself feeling such exhaustion, feeling deep in a funk. And let's face it, if you've listened to the podcast too, you know my many episodes on perimenopause and moving through different life transitions. And as smart as I am in this area, I have been doing this work for over a decade. I've been working with transitions and know everything to expect. However, as until you've walked in those shoes, you have no idea what it's like, right? You can have an idea, you can have empathy, you can have an understanding, but until it's actually happening to you, it's different when you experience it, right? And even though I know all of this and I had all these systems in place to support myself, I was it was horrible. I'm just going to tell you, it was not easy. I was feeling like extreme mood swings, feeling exhausted, feeling snappy, feeling like this really stuck fight energy that was activated. This is a very common thing that a lot of people go through when they're moving through life transitions. And I still have a regular period. I still have not entered full menopause yet, but I can definitely tell the perimenopause party is happening here in this body. And I found myself like really feeling back to those times when I was postpartum, feeling that same type of depletion, feeling that same type of exhaustion, feeling that same type of emotional draining. And so what I did was I went back to my tools, right? I went back to what I teach all my clients and I went through the process myself. And it was amazing to me how powerful this work is. I mean, I know it's powerful, right? I take people through these practices all the time in this formula, but really remembering that once you learn the tools, you have them forever. You have that capacity to come back again and again to solve your problems, to deal with hard times, because we're going to have those in life. We don't get a free pass of the glory ride. We're going to have those challenging times of life, of transition, of loss, of all the things. And so when you can go back to these root steps, then you can move through them more easily. So I want to walk through that a little bit, what I did and what I teach clients to do, because this is just the formula. And the other thing I love about this is what I am teaching you is to reclaim that power that you already have within you, right? We have this insane capacity to create and to bring what we want into our lives, but we just get so disconnected to it that we have to remember. We have to scrape off all the residue that keeps us from knowing what we know and reconnecting to that ancient wisdom that is within us, right? We have this already within us. So, how do we do this, right? What do we do? Well, first of all, I know how busy so many people are. I am busy. My clients are busy. We have a lot going on. And we want to be able to make these changes without adding tons of unfulfilling things to our already full to do list, right? Spending hours and hours obsessing over our problems or overthinking what's going on, worrying that we're broken or something is wrong with us. I just want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. You are perfect just as you are. Okay? You are perfect just as you are. And you might be wanting to make some changes so that you feel better, so that you have more energy, so that you enjoy connection with yourself and your partner, that you feel that orgasmic energy flowing through your body again. Or if you never did, you want to experience that before you die. Right? We want these as humans, we have a lot that we want to experience in life. And there's no time like the present to start making changes so that you can immediately start living a more pleasure filled life. It is possible. It is possible and doable to find your feminine fire again, to find that aliveness again without adding more to your plate, even if it feels scary and intimidating, because I know that can happen too. But really, what it's about reconnecting to your needs, your energy, and that spark inside of you. And then following this proven process to help you reignite your sense of sensuality, your innate sense of belonging and worthiness, and being able to know your needs and speak those, right? And I get it that sometimes it can feel really hard and embarrassing to talk about these things. People are often afraid their relationship will shift or that their partner will be intimidated by their changes. But 9 times out of 10, I see that the people around you are going to come along once they see the shifts in you. And we can be the leaders in our relationship through these types of things. Like we can be the one to make change. And so often, everything around us shifts as we shift. And oftentimes it can just feel like, oh, well, things aren't that bad. So I'm just going to go along. And that's okay, right? This is work isn't for everyone. It is only for the ones who want things to be different, who want to have that more alive connection to their sexuality, to their eroticism, to their aliveness, to their orgasmic capacity of life. And I'm not talking just about sex, I'm talking about everywhere to move through life from a place of a resource versus depletion, from feeling exhausted to being ecstatic about life and ecstatic in your body and really feeling deeply resourced. And what does that mean? It means full of all the things you need to thrive. That's what that term means. It means feeling that you have more than enough, right? That your needs are met. And from that place, it is so much easier to enjoy. And I get it. Like we live in a very unjust society. So for some, it is even more challenging than others to get your basic needs met. And so the more that we can build on our resource, the more capacity we have for what feels good, for more pleasure. When I first started doing this work, I was depleted with a baby who never slept for 3 years. I was up every 2 hours for 3.5 years. Okay. So I know that feeling of depletion. And through doing this work, I realized it's okay to take time for myself. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to do what I need to do to put my needs at the front of the table too. It doesn't mean I'm neglecting anyone else's needs. It means my needs are just as important, if not more so, than others. Because if I am depleted, there is no way I'm going to show up as my best self for my kid when they're having a meltdown. There is no way I'm going to show up as my best self when my partner is triggering me and I feel like this urge to attack. That's not going to, those parts, the good parts of me, the most empowered adult parts of me are not going to come to the table when I am depleted. And even now, I can tell when I'm depleted, those, the parts that aren't my favorite. I do love them and I honor them and I appreciate all that they teach me. But I know that that's not the time and place for them to run the show. So just so you know, that's the power of resource and not just like feeling it in your head or like checking the boxes, but actually feeling it in your body, feeling it in your system, letting your nervous system have that feeling of safety, of enoughness, of more than enough. And we can teach it that. We can teach and learn how to hold more of what's good and to more easily move through what's hard, right? We're moving through, our nervous system moves through a million things all day long, right? So when people say a regulated nervous system, I mean, you're not expected to be regulated all the time. That's not realistic. Your nervous system is meant to ebb and flow. You just don't want to get stuck in stressed out or anxious or elevated state or too shut down and exhausted and dissociated state, right? We want to be able to move through it all and just kind of increase our capacity for all of it, right? Because it's all part of life. It's all that beautiful elixir of life. Okay. And after over a decade of working with overwhelmed women and working with hundreds of clients and thousands of students, what I see is that we all have similar struggles, right? No matter what it looks like on the outside, we all have similar struggles inside. And I really want to help women like you, help people like you realize that you're more. You have everything you need within you. That magnetic, powerful, confident version of you is inside. It is inside of you already. It just needs a little dusting off, right? Because we are never taught in our culture how to value our sexuality as a vital part of our power, as a vital part of our holistic well being. That is definitely not what we're taught. And so that is what we want to remember because when we can, this is an aspect of ourselves that's been totally shut down. This is why I say this is like the most important thing you can do when it comes to personal development work. Because when you go to the root of so much shame and taboo and pain and trauma and hurt, and when you can work through that, everything else becomes easier. Everything else seems to shift. Body image seems to shift. All kinds of things. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I spent many, many years battling eating disorders and hating myself and just feeling disgusting in my skin and just really harming myself through eating and drinking and partying and all the things. And what I realized after I came to this work is that there's nothing wrong with my body. and it's meant to shift and change, and everyone's is different and everyone's is unique and everyone's is beautiful. So, whoever thought that working on my sexuality was going to cure my eating disorder, but that was one of the things that, I looked at my body differently. I mean, it's something I had worked on and felt pretty cured of, but I realized when I was doing a lot of this deeper work, there's so many layers of our healing, right? There's so many layers of things that we have to keep. There's just more layers that sometimes pop up to be addressed. And I feel like when we learn these tools to heal at the deeper levels, then when issues pop up, we can more easily move through them, right? So, there's so much information out there. So I can get it if it feels like sometimes there's an information overload happening. Most people that are listening to this podcast have probably invested in therapy and books and classes and all the things to reconnect to their feminine power or reconnect to their sexuality or feel more whole in themselves. And I did that in the past too, right? I read all the books and I did all the courses. But what I found was I felt like there were so many gaps in the process. Like there were gaps. I was not quite sure how to use the tools or the techniques, or maybe I was confused about the steps to take or how to actually implement these in my life. And I think that is what the difference of really doing the deeper work about trusting our bodies and learning to listen in, then we have so much better skills, right? And I know there's so much out there too that's focused on surface level things, as I talked about in the podcast a few weeks ago. You can't just check the boxes, right? There's a lot of spiritual coaching out there that doesn't address the deeper issues around sexuality or past hurts or blocks that feel like they're still standing in the way of your current pleasure and connection, because really that's what we want. We want to enjoy it now. We don't want to spend years rehashing things in the past. We want to move into feeling good now, right? You want to feel better starting today. And I get it. And so that's how I've created this blueprint, is just combining the best of what I've seen and learned after almost a decade of serving so many people without the unnecessary busy work. Because there are simple ways to weave these things into your life. Hey, it's Amanda. If you are enjoying the show and felt a connection to what we've discussed, and you're ready to take the next step in reigniting your passion and enhancing your relationships, I have something special for you. Visit www.amandatesta.com/thegoods, where you can subscribe to my email. And if you want, you can sign up for a free personalized sensuality rediscovery session with me. In this one-on-one heart-to-heart session, we'll explore your unique desires, uncover any challenges, and set a path for you to experience the vibrant, fulfilling love life you deserve. Don't let another day pass feeling unfulfilled or disconnection. Take action now, and let's start this beautiful journey together to fire up your feminine fire. Join me at amandatesta.com/thegoods. I'm excited to stay connected. Now back to the show. And so there's 4 phases of the process, and I'm just going to quickly run through because I don't have time to go deeply into all of them right now, but I want to give you the understanding of this is the steps that you can take to start feeling better and to start moving from exhaustion to feeling that ecstasy again, feeling those bubbles of excitement and joy start to come alive again, and that vivaciousness and that confidence and that aliveness coming back to the surface. It is so delicious and healing. So the first thing is we've got to remember the things that make us feel good, right? These are kind of the pleasure basics of understanding how, to create clarity, compassion, and boundaries. Number 2 is we have to go through that ignition phase of really learning to tap into who we really are and how do we feel safe to express that in the world, and how do we connect to our body, and how do we even understand what our anatomy is, and understanding all of those things, right? That's kind of the ignition phase. And then we go into the radiate phase, which is all around trusting your inner wisdom and really bringing that wise part of you online, and remembering how to nourish yourself, how to use pleasure as nourishment for your nervous system or your overall wellness, because our sexual health is an overall part of our health and wellness that often gets put on the back burner. But when we are struggling in this area, if there's pain and discomfort, or if there's shame, all these things can be shutting down vital parts of our life force. And so we need to learn how to kind of bring those parts back online. And then finally, we have expansion. This is where we really embrace our erotic evolution, where we can liberate our sensual selves, where we can co-create healthy partnerships and really learn the tools to communicate effectively and to move through conflict This are the 4 phases. And so I'm going to go through a little bit more deeply, just really quickly, because I think it's so important to kind of get the understanding of how it works. This is why you can't just throw on the red panties and expect things to change, right? This is why you can't just schedule the sex and expect years of self hatred to evaporate. This is why you can't just check the boxes when it comes to having better sex. So, when it comes to phase one, which is the first part of this blueprint, is like creating those foundations. Like there's some foundational things that you need to tip into. And these kind of are like the pleasure basics, I like to call them. So, number one is finding clarity and reconnecting to the desires, right? We sometimes don't even know what we want. Oftentimes, when I talk with women, I'm like, what would you do if you had $1 million in a whole day to yourself? And so many times I get the answer, I don't even know. Like I could not even tell you what I want. Maybe you can resonate because I know when I first started doing this work, that was totally me. I was so disconnected from my needs and desires, I could not even tell you. I know I wanted a nap for like 5 years. And maybe that's what you need. Maybe you need rest. But it's like getting really clear on what you want and creating the aligned action plan to get you there. Because our desires are our compass. And when we can tune into those, we can see where the next steps lie. And sometimes, someone once told me this, which I thought was a great analogy, is clarity is kind of like moving through fog when you're climbing a mountain, right? Sometimes you don't know exactly what's at the top of the mountain, but all right, here's the next steps I want to take. And sometimes that's the way it is, right? Sometimes it is crystal clear, but sometimes we just got to take the steps and realize, okay, I took these steps and I feel amazing. I want to keep going down this path. Or I took these steps and that is not for me. So then we reroute, right? We find a new path. This is the power of tuning in to our desires. And as I mentioned before, it really connects us to our soul seed, which is that initial part of us that knows how to receive and knows how to tune into its needs and knows how to ask for what it wants. It knows how to bloom and how to grow, right? A seed has that encoded wisdom that it knows what to do. It doesn't have to force, it doesn't have to push. It just has to let itself unfold, right? The same is true for us. We really have to understand how to tune into what our needs are. Remember the things that make us feel good. Remember the things that make us feel nourished and do those things more often than not. Because the more we can start to build that foundation, again, the easier it is to access the higher states of pleasure and arousal and what feels good. So we start with this phase one of tuning into our needs. What are they? How do I remember what those are? And how do I really work with the parts of me that feel hard asking or that feel hard receiving? This is something I hear often from clients is that they're really good at giving, but not so good at receiving. So maybe they can put on a show when it comes to sex, or they're great at performing. But when it actually comes time to receive, that's something they don't feel comfortable with. Or maybe their partner is doing something really lovely to their body, but they have a lot of shame around, okay, well, if they're going down on me, then do I smell or did I shave? Or all the thoughts that have zero to do with tapping into your pleasure, which actually take you far the other direction, right? And so, how can you become better at receiving, better at allowing yourself to receive? This is part of it. And being with all those parts that might need extra help. The next step in this is also really important, which is creating boundaries that support you. And I like to think of this part as like the gatekeeper. If you think about a gatekeeper, it's letting in what is good for the environment and keeping out what is not. So it's moving towards what is nourishing and what is life giving and what is healthy and moving away from what is unhealthy, what is extractive, what is depleting. Right. And this work, when we kind of go a level deeper to get an embodied sense of what does it mean to feel a full yes in my body? What does it mean when I feel a no? And how do I navigate from those points forward? That's a big part of it. Because again, this is not something that we've learned. From a young age, we're taught to override our body's needs and wants, right? I just remember when Mimi, my kiddo, was little and getting into it with her school principal because they would only let him go to the bathroom like one time a day. I was like, that is not going to fly because these kids need to learn to listen to their body's biological urges and then do what they need for themselves. Can't tell a 5-year-old to hold it for 3 extra hours when they have to pee. That is unrealistic and not okay. You can tell I get very passionate about these things. Yeah. So that's the thing. And then figuring out how to carve out time for yourself, because that is something that we have to do. We have to carve it out because it is not freely available. We have to rearrange and figure out what is it that we really need. what is really going to support us the most. And what this does is it helps you truly heal all that stands in the way of authentically accepting and embracing your authentic sexuality, your authentic way of being in the world, your authentic needs and desires. And also kind of learning, all right, what are the things that are making me feel good? And how can I do more of that? How can I let in more of the good stuff? Because that, my friends, is the foundation. Okay, so then the next phase is moving into that ignition phase, right? Start me up. Let's get that fire turned back on. And this is where we kind of move more into embracing who we are. Because again, we've all been taught that dimming. We've all been taught not to shine our full light. We've all been taught that expression is unladylike or that is not attractive. So you certainly don't want to let those crazy looks of ecstasy and pleasure to come across your face, right? So we're gonna move all those false narratives aside here. We are going to embrace our inner expressionista, right? This is that part of us that is allowing our whole heart to shine fully. That is allowing who we are to be celebrated, who we are to be seen at the deepest levels, letting our heart's medicine shine and in a way that feels really good, right? And sometimes that starts with just the people closest to you. Because when we are growing up, and maybe if we've experienced shame around our sexual selves or just who we are in the world, it feels hard for that part of us to come out at times, right? To be our authentic self in and out of the bedroom is so enlivening and so healing and builds immense confidence. That is a big part of this process, as well as when we think about the full aspect of ourselves shining. You can think about this because I hear this so often from clients as well, is we're very good at compartmentalizing our lives. So for example, one of my clients is a high level executive, right? They work with a lot of males. It's a male dominated field. And a lot of times in these type of cultures, in those type of corporate environments, even, there is unnecessary or uncalled for bias, discrimination, a lot of, sometimes I'm putting this in quotes, the good old boys club, if you know what I'm saying. And so dealing with that, then they're like, okay, so I have to show up this way at work. And then I show up this way when I'm a mom. And then I show up this way when I'm with my partner, right? So when we're trying to navigate all these different aspects to ourselves, that's not always a bad thing, right? We have to be discerning of what we bring to certain environments. And I think I just want one caveat to that is this is one of the important things about really expressing your sexuality fully is that doesn't mean that it's always going to be on at a 10, right? We have discernment. We can turn the dial down, turn the dial up, right? If I'm walking along a dark street alley at 2 a.m., I'm going to probably have that turned down to 1 or 0, right? But when I'm in the bedroom with my lover, I want that at a 10 or an 11. So just to say, we want all of ourselves to all the different parts of us to be in coherence with one another so that we don't feel that parts of us that are not equipped to be showing up in the bedroom, making sure those parts aren't showing up in the bedroom, right? Because so often we'll have these different aspects of us that are showing up when they don't need to be. And the more we can have that, our most empowered self come to the table, then we have such better self trust. We don't doubt ourselves. We don't doubt our choices. We say what we want. We do what we need to do. And we have less influence. There's less noise coming in, right? There's less of that noise coming in to keep us from focusing. So we also have to learn to listen to the language of our body, learning this power of interoception and listening to what our body is doing, listening to the sensations, learning to tune back into that, because there is an energetic shift that happens when we can tune in at a deeper level to our wants and needs. When we can really understand the power of our body, understand our anatomy and what it's capable of, because time and time again, when I teach clients and when I teach workshops on just understanding the anatomy of pleasure, they're blown away about what they did not learn in school. Okay. And this really transforms your relationship with intimacy because there are some cognitive things that are important, right? We need to understand how things work. We need to understand our anatomy. We need to understand what turns us on. We need to understand what we like and also what our partner likes and how we can weave those things together in a way that feels delicious for the both of us, or however you choose to come together in partnership. And I think, again, This really builds confidence in your body's ability to receive pleasure. And there's simple things that you can do to implement these things into your life that default more to pleasure so that you can start defaulting more to what feels good, really listening to that and moving in that direction. Okay. Because it is a process. Now, I'm not going to go as deeply into the next two sections today, but the third phase is that radiate phase, is where you really are building in more self trust, connecting to that wisest part of you, really unlearning the conditioning beliefs that we've picked up along the way, unshaming ourselves, and exploring what you can learn when it comes to pleasure, how you can prioritize your needs in a busy world, how you can really nourish your nervous system, how you can more resiliently face challenges so that you are more self assured, that you have trust in your instincts, that you free yourself from limiting beliefs and memories that really liberate your sexual self, your expression, and being yourself more fully in the world. Again, we're continuing to build that capacity of resource and pleasure every step of the way. And the final phase is the expansion phase, where you are really embracing your erotic evolution. This is such a fun part because this is one of my favorite levels. Because once we've done all the base level things, that's when you can start weaving in more of the erotic practices and learning different tools and techniques to explore your sexuality, to explore your pleasure, right? You can learn to embody the different aspects of and the different flavors of eroticism because there are so many out there. And oftentimes we just haven't been able to explore. So maybe you'll find through this practice that, oh, wow, I never really thought I was into that, but I guess I am. Or, you know what? I was doing this all along and I never really liked it. So I'm not doing that anymore. There's so many different flavors of pleasure. And this is the opportunity where you learn the skills to try them all on to find out what you love. You really learn those pleasure tools to fire up your sexual energy and expand your pleasure potential and your orgasmic capacity. Because this, my friends, is a learned skill. You can teach your body to have better orgasms, to have full body orgasms, to expand the capacity of what you even thought was possible. And let me tell you, even if you think you have a great sex life, your mind's going to be blown with some of these things, okay? In the best possible way. Oh, it's so fun. And then really, we just keep learning how to co create because when we are doing these changes in ourselves, we live in a relational world, right? We're in sacred relationship to all that is. And when we are in this place, we are so much better capable of listening and responding to what is needed for a healthy ecosystem. You can start to enjoy increased understanding, empathy, and collaboration. You learn tools for more productive conversations. You learn how to resolve conflict. You learn how to really create the epic, intimate partnerships that you want. Because again, we can do so much on our own. And so often things shift around us. But we also want to invite in the people around us to play with these tools and to learn how to communicate better and to be willing to try and experiment and invite curiosity in. And so these are the times when we work with, okay, well, what if my partner's really, resistant? Or what if I'm doing all this and they're doing nothing? And then what we can do to shift those things. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes this is a fear that often people have. It's like, well, if I do all this work, then I'm going to get a divorce or, we're not going to be able to make it work. And 9 times out of 10, I'm telling you, if you are in a good partnership and you want things to shift, your partner's going to come along. But there is the rare occasion where, you know what? You might have known since day one that this wasn't right. And you just needed to build your capacity and resource and strength to make the decision that you already knew you were going to make. So that happens too, because you are becoming so clear on your truth and what you need. The difference is at the end of our work together, you have the capacity to know that no matter what, you've got it. You know that you are resourceful. You know that you have the tools that you need to deal with any challenge that comes your way. So instead of being crippled by anxiety or crippled by fear, stuck in that liminal space, you are confident and can make decisions that serve you, right? No matter what that is. And 9 times out of 10, it's becoming, taking your relationship from meh to magical. I can't even tell you how many times, and this is my favorite voicemail to get, is when clients call me telling me about some amazing sexual escapade they had or how they're having the best sex of their lives, or they're like blown away at how deeply connected their partnership is again. So that is the juice. I feel like that is really the healing elixir of it all is connection and love. So, in summary, this is really the map. This is the blueprint to follow that when you want to reclaim your sensual aliveness, when you want to have better sex, when you want to have epic partnerships, when you really want to move from feeling exhausted to feeling ecstatic, these are the things that you do. And so I'd love to know as well, I love hearing back from you. So I'd love to hear, what is the most challenging thing that you feel you're facing when it comes to this? And what are you most excited to see shift? Right? Maybe there's one thing on this list that you want to implement, right? Maybe you want to make a desire list. Maybe you want to figure out where your boundaries might be lacking. Maybe you want to figure out, what are the things I want to learn about my anatomy? Maybe it's like, how could I explore more about my pleasure capacity? Right? These are all things that are doable and learnable. And so I share this because if this is something that you want more support around, then I'll invite you to reach out to me. There are so many different ways that we could work together. There's so many different things that you can do that are really easy and that are doable. I just want to share that we have gotten these messages our whole lives that merely surviving is enough. That skirting around, minimizing our desires, and sticking to those good girl scripts is the way. But we know that's bullshit, right? We know that is not true. Constantly battling with our mind, second guessing everything, maybe feeling like an island in your relationship, feeling unable to tap into pleasure, and feeling unable to enjoy this beautiful life that you've created, being tangled in the web of anxiety or not enoughness or shame. That is not the stuff, my friend. That is not the stuff dreams are made of. We don't want that. When that cloud of disconnection hangs over your relationship, your business, other areas of your life, it really turns that vibrant creativity that we are capable of into grayscale, right? We feel like just robot zombies going through the day. And that is not what is true, right? That is the story the world has handed to us. And this is the key too. It's like finding our feminine fire, reconnecting to our sexual aliveness, feeling that intimacy return. It's not just about shoving a 10-minute ritual in here or there, but it's about these deeper level shifts into oceans of pleasure, claiming spaces that have always been yours, but you have forgotten about, and really finding ways to have deeper connection, deeper presence with you and the ones around you. These are huge, huge shifts. And a lot of times my clients will say this work is sneaky powerful, because when we're doing deeper work on the nervous system, when we're doing deeper work to heal some of these old patterns that are unhealthy, it's like you're a different person at the end of it. Things that used to stress you out don't anymore. Places where you used to hold shame are free to explore different experiences. So it's literally like you are becoming a new version of yourself. And so if you're ready to rip up that old narrative and move forward, you have the opportunity to do that, right? Where you can be fully fulfilled, that you can kindle your divine essence and really claim that place. Claim your place as the unstoppable force that you are, because you are. Okay. And let's set the world on fire together, shall we? Thank you so much for being here and listening to the podcast. If you're curious to learn more about working together, you can always book your free consultation call with me, amandatesta.com/apply. And if you are feeling something coming alive in you as you listen to this podcast episode, I would encourage you to reach out. Also, if you feel like someone you know would love this episode, please forward it along. And thank you again for being a part of the community. We will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. If you loved this episode, please go ahead and forward it right now to someone you know would love it. And if you've not had a chance yet to leave us a rave review on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to rate and review if you enjoyed it, as well as make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you want to stay connected, make sure to go to amandatesta.com/thegoods to download your free sensuality activation and stay connected. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.